High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. Turn the page. When he was alive, he'd been called the Happy Prince because he did not know what tears were. Everything around him had been so beautiful that he never asked what lay beyond the gardens of his lovely palace. But he was now no longer happy, for he could see below him all the misery and poverty in his city, and although his heart was now made of lead, yet he wept at the sight of so much sorrow. Turn. One night, a little swallow flew over the city. His friends had already flown away to Egypt, but he had dallied. Now he knew he must hurry and get away before the snows came. When he saw the statue of the prince, he said to himself, "I'll put up here for the night." So he alighted at the feet of the statue. He put his head under his wing and was just going off to sleep when a large drop of water splashed down on him. Then another. And another. "What a curious thing," he cried. "There's not a single cloud in the sky, and yet it is raining." He looked up at the statue of the Happy Prince and saw that tears were running down his golden cheeks. He was filled with pity. "Why are you weeping?" asked the swallow. Turn the page. "Because," answered the statue, "far away in a little house I see a poor woman sewing to earn her living. Her little boy is very ill and feverish and is asking for oranges. Swallow, little swallow, will you take her the ruby out of my sword hilt?" The Happy Prince looked so sad that the little swallow felt sorry for him. Turn. So he picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak to the poor woman. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. "How cool I feel," said the boy, and sank into a delicious slumber. Next morning it was cold, and the swallow said, "Tonight I must fly to Egypt." "Swallow, little swallow," said the prince, "will you not stay with me one night longer?" Turn the page. "Far away," he said, "I see a young poet sitting in an attic trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he's too cold and hungry to write any more. My eyes are made of rare sapphires. Pluck out one of them and take it to him, so that he may buy food and firewood and finish his play." "Dear prince," said the swallow, "I cannot do that," and began to weep. But the prince insisted. Turn. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew with it to the poet, and when the poet saw the sapphire, he was very happy and said, "Now I can finish my play." The little swallow flew back to the Happy Prince. "I have come to bid you goodbye. I am flying to Egypt," he said. "Swallow, little swallow," said the prince, "will you not stay with me one night longer?" "It is winter," answered the swallow, "and the chill snows will soon be here, so I must leave you, my dear prince. But I'll never forget you." Turn the page. In the square below, there is a poor little girl selling matches. But she has dropped her matches in the gutter, and they're all spoiled. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her. Turn. "I will stay with you one night longer," said the swallow, and plucked out the prince's other eye, and flying down, slipped the jewel into the little girl's hand, and she ran home, laughing with joy. Turn the page. Then the swallow flew back to the prince. "You are blind now," he said, "so I will stay with you always." "No, little swallow," said the prince, "you must go away to Egypt before the snows come." Turn. "I will stay with you always," said the swallow, and he slept at the prince's feet. The prince then said, "I am covered with fine gold. Take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to the poor, and to the two little boys under the bridge who are lying in each other's arms trying to keep warm." And the swallow brought all the gold to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the streets. Then the snows came, and after the snows came the frost, and the poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too much. At last he knew he was going to die. "Goodbye, dear prince," he said, and kissed the happy prince on the lips, and fell dead at his feet. At this moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, for the leaden heart of the prince had snapped right in two. Turn the page. The next morning, people who passed the statue said, "Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks. The jewels have gone. He's golden no longer." So they decided to have the statue pulled down and melted in a furnace. Turn the page. "What a strange thing," said the foreman of the foundry. "This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace." So they threw it on a dust heap, where the dead swallow was also lying. Turn. And God said to one of his angels, "Bring me the two most precious things in the city." And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. Turn. And God said, "In my garden of paradise, this little bird shall always sing, and the happy prince shall be happy forever after."